Hallelujah. Well, God bless you and thank you for joining me for the New Man News Network. My name is Aaron Agnew. I'm a newscaster here on the New Man News Network, and the new man is in the house. Today's show, I'm featuring my own wife, the Dr. Amalia Agnew. You're wondering why my smile was so big, right? I'm so glad to have my wife with me today. And we're here to talk about life and ministry together. God bless you, Dr. Agnew.
God bless you.
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
All right. I wanted to bring you on the show today. Of course, usually I have Apostle Smith here, but at the moment he's in mission. And since he's on a mission, I thought, why not do a show with my own wife? And I have to repent and say, forgive me. I hadn't been doing more shows with her. I know a lot of our friends have been asking. And so I wanted to introduce you to the audience, and some people may know you, and present you to others who do already know you, so that we can kind of just talk about life and ministry together. And so maybe, I don't know, where do we get started? Can you introduce yourself to those who may not know you?
Amen. Well, should I talk in the camera?
Oh, talk to me.
I was born and raised in Belgium, in Europe. I went to school there, and at the age of 24, I moved to the United States of America. A little snippet, I guess, part of that is I was raised to be an atheist. In the Bible, an atheist is somebody who does not believe that there is a God in their heart. I didn't believe that there was a God. I didn't believe a God existed. So I believed that I was a God. I was relying on myself to accomplish everything. And at the age of 14, I was having a conversation with my father and my mother, and those words came out of my mouth. I said, quote, "I'm going to move to the United States. I'm going to marry a pastor. I'm going to have a bunch of children, and I'm going to help educate children. I'm going to be involved in education in difficult areas." Of course, at the time, my parents looked at me and thought, just talking, because I was a very outspoken, very provoking, very out-of-the-box kind of person. I was never to fit in any categories. So they would always thought, she's going to say something to provoke people. Well, later on, I found out that the Lord was letting me know what he had created me to do. Because my parents, being unbelievers, they couldn't speak in my life telling me what God had created me to do. So I had a superimposition of God's divinity on my humanity to let me know this is what you're going to do with your life. And after I heard that, even though I didn't know if it was from the Lord, something happened in me and I believed it. And from the age of 14 to the age of 24, I was completely and totally focused on how to get to the United States. And I look at different avenues, and one of the avenues that was offered was to go to college. So I worked diligently on that. And the first thing I said, I have to learn to speak English. I can't move to the United States and I can't speak English. So at the age of 18, after I graduated from high school, I went to Australia and I lived there for a year as an exchange student to learn English. And I was so determined to learn English that I didn't want to speak French at all for a whole year. I only spoke to my parents 12 times in a year, and that was the only French I spoke. And so I became fluent in English. After that, I went back to Belgium and I did a bachelor in chemistry. And with me looking at what it would take, I realized they would only pick the people who have certain results and certain references. So it just became my life. I just studied all day long that because I believed what I had said, even though I didn't know where it came from. And so at 24, I graduated with my bachelor in chemistry at the age of in June 30th of 2001. July 10th, 2001, I was on the plane to move to the U.S. 10 days later. And of course, I had organized all the, visa process and all that throughout the years. But 10 days later is when I moved. And so I moved to Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, in July 10th, 2001. And it was amazing that September 11 happened a couple of months after I moved there, changed everything. After that, I was in a program, PhD program, and I'm gonna pause here.
You want to pause there?
Pause here, otherwise I'm gonna keep on with the story.
Well, I think people are really into what you're saying, but I'm going to insert this because we're going to be talking about life and ministry together, and we're going to use the time that we do have. Of course, we don't have a lot, so we're probably going to have to continue this show, but someone once said, how is it possible for you not to believe there is a God? That's not a possibility. You have to believe. People are lying when they say they don't believe. So can you answer, just someone out there may have a question of, what is it like? I mean, what is it to not believe there is no God?
It's a training. You being trained not in the way that you should go. You being trained in a certain idea, which is there is no God. So I took classes from the age of 6 to 18, 3 times or 2 times a week to learn about everything that's not related to God. I was learning to be an unbeliever. And so it's my dad always rehearsed with me that there is no God. And because I wasn't exposed to anything else, I didn't see Bibles, and the environment that I was growing up in was not conducive to know anything else. What I would see is big cathedral, Catholic cathedral, but they would be empty, and I never went into one. So for me, it didn't mean anything. It was just a big building that was built by man, and it was actually, I just emphasized the work of man through that and say, oh, look how great man is. That's amazing that you can build something like that. And so it was a training, and I never questioned it. I never knew anything different. I just remember at 14, that's when the Lord really started working me over. I was learning about Darwin, the evolution theory. And I remember sitting in my bedroom in the little house I was growing up in, and I was looking through the window at my desk studying the evolution, and I started having questions. And I was questioning what I was learning. And one of the questions I had is, well, if this happened, why did monkeys stop evolving into human beings? Why are we not seeing it right now? And I really start wondering about certain things that I was told. But because it was such a strong teaching inside the home, I didn't pursue in questioning my dad about what he was teaching me, or even the silence of my mom about anything spiritual. I just didn't question it because it was just something I was trained to believe.
You know, you have what's called practical atheists, what some would call Christian atheists. Even though they believe in God, they don't live like it. They don't act like it. They live just like any other atheist.
Right.
And it's interesting you're communicating that way, because you have so many believers that you wouldn't even know they're believers in Jesus Christ unless they say it. And there's no difference in their life.
Yes.
They don't trust God when situations happen. I mean, it's normal for them to act just like an unbeliever. But did you have any encounters with believers in your family or around you that kind of made you question anything?
I did. I remember one person that I encountered. Her son was playing basketball in Europe, and I was very involved with basketball, and I met her through him, and she told me, why don't you come and visit me during the summer? It'll be, all you have to do is get the ticket. So I thought, oh, it will be a great experience, and I went to visit her. And she would, I remember, she would kneel down at her bedside in the morning and in the evening, and she would communicate. But I didn't know what she was communicating and to who. And she was very outspoken about what she believed, but because it was so foreign to me, they were just seed planted. I know she planted some seed, but it was just very foreign to me. It was a foreign language. It was like I never heard such a thing. And after that, when I moved to the U.S., I met different people. And even though the outside appearance seems as though I had it together and I had it going on, I knew inside what I was feeling. And so I started looking for a solution. And I met some people, and I remember a particular person. I met her, and she would tell me, you need Jesus. And I would tell her why. Because being in a PhD in chemistry, I was, somewhat arrogant. And so I would tell her, or analytical. I wanted to understand it all and analyze it all. So I told her why. She said, because you just need Jesus. And I was very outspoken, and I told her, well, I don't understand what you're telling me, that you out of shape. I'm not. I hit the gym twice a day. You're always asking me for money. You full of pills. And so I was actually watching her. But what I was watching is I wasn't focusing so much on the struggle she was going through. What I focused on is, how are you going through the struggle? And that's what shocked me, is that there is no difference in me going through the struggle and you going through the struggle. So why are you telling me that I need Jesus? So I always encourage people saying, the atheist or Baha'i or Hindu, they're not looking at you to not have struggle. They're looking at, what do you do when struggle hit? And if there's no difference between you and me going through the struggle, then there's no testimony. And what are you telling me I need Jesus for?
Now, some of us believers who are watching right now need to repent. We need to ask God, please forgive me, and then go and ask some of your friends who don't know the Lord, say, forgive me. I hadn't really been living the life that proves that I have God in me. Oh my, this is something. So what about your personal family? Was there not anybody who believed, anybody you encountered within your personal family, either immediate, your mom, outside, your grandparents, or?
So my mom, I could hear here and there from her that there was a power. There was something bigger. But because my dad was so outspoken about there is no God, and she was very submissive, she never really talked to me about it. Now, my great-grandmothers, I found out later, I believe were believers. And I didn't know nothing about it, simply because the man in my flesh family were pretty strong men. And so what they say is what they say, and the women were more quiet to an extent to where they really didn't, they knew certain subject that they didn't have the liberty to talk about it. And so I never found that out until later when I start discovering things and I heard things. Like my great-grandmother on my mother's side, she told me when she was married, people would say, "That's all you're gonna have, one child?" And she used to say, "That's all the Lord gave me." Well, I never knew that until later. And what I remember, I was 6 years old, and she was 96 or 98. And she used to sit in the living room in my grandparents' house, and she had so much peace. It was like just so much peace. And I would look at her and it would irritate me at 2, 4, 6, because I didn't understand that peace. And I wasn't taught about the peace of God. So I just didn't know. And I looked at it as, oh, I just wish you would say something. Quit sitting down like that, so peaceful. And that great-grandmother, I found out, was most likely praying for me while I was making circle around her, because she never took a pill in her life. And when she, at 98, I think in 96 or 98, she looked at my grandparents and my parents and she said, "I'm gonna go and rest now." And it was evening, so they thought she's gonna go and rest. She went, she lay down in the bed and never woke up. She didn't die, she fell asleep. And she had a very disciplined life. And so there were people in my family who I believe were believers, but I find that out later. I didn't know because they were so toned out compared to the strong man who fought for atheism and socialism in the family.
So they didn't just fight for atheism, but socialism.
Oh, absolutely.
So I was about to ask the question, what do you think led to this strong hatred, strong detesting of a God and a Bible and any type of religious belief or talk? What do you believe led to that in the family?
So I believe that one major event in the family was the concentration camp during World War II. Because from that, some people, like my great-grandmother on my father's side, she would lay down in the bed and she would have her hand like this and she would talk. And my father was about 6 years old at the time, and he would tell her, what are you talking to? What are you saying? And she said, I'm praying so I can find out from God and Jesus what happened to your grandfather, because he had been killed, he had been burned in the concentration camp, but at that time they didn't know where, and she wanted to have peace about it. And that in him, it really caused him to have a big hatred, because he saw it as, how can you believe there is a God and you suffered in human suffering, something that nobody could really endure. For him, it was such a disconnect. And so that caused a lot of, for me, it's one of the root cause of that hatred. And Hitler using, Gott mit Hun God is with us every time, he did what he did. If you don't have explanation at the time that it happened, or when you face the pictures and the letters and when you hear the atrocity of it, if you don't have somebody that can answer you, then it just grows, and the hatred grow and grow, and it just turns into...
While we're there, some people don't know, are not knowledgeable of what happened during that time. So we've been asked the question, are you a Jew, or are your family members Jews, your great-grandfather? Can you just talk about who in your family experienced being arrested, prisoners of war in Germany, and why? Are they Jews? Are they not? Can you explain that?
So they were not Jews. They were people from Belgium. They were Belgian people born and raised in Belgium. But they were part of the resistance. The resistance was a movement that was put together in order to, in a nutshell, resist Hitler and his plan. And what they would do is help the different soldiers when they get on the ground. American soldiers from England get on the ground of Belgium to help them do what they need to do. And for example, my grandmother says she used to roll some maps that were needed to be given to the American soldiers and put them in the handlebar of her bike. And then you put the rubber things back on there, and she would ride her bike and get to the soldier and give them the maps, and hiding soldier in their home. And the neighbors, they were part of the people who thought we're just going to go along with what's going on, not knowing the danger of going along with what Hitler had going. They were just real, we're just going to let him do what he does. And so they told the Nazis what my grandparents were doing and great-grandparents were doing on my father's side. And the Nazis came and arrested my great-grandparents and my grandfather and took him to the camp. My grandparents on my father's side had their house bombarded 3 times. So it was, just, no, they were not Jews, but they were part of the resistance, and they were very strong and very involved about it. And so the neighbors, for lack of better words, snitch on them, and that's how they got arrested.
Yeah, it's interesting to be able to not just meet someone, but hear the testimony of some of the things that people go through that people never know about.
Right.
And, most people, even more today than ever before, are very singular, or they're very enclosed, and they don't even consider what others have been through or gone through, and why people believe the way they believe.
Right.
So if we can just backtrack and go back to June 30th of 2001, you graduated. June 10th, you're on a plane. July 10th, you're on a plane, and you arrive in the United States of America in Arizona. What type of experience is that? What happens when you arrive in a country you've never lived in? You visited before a few times, but you never lived here, and now you're about to live here. I mean, what were you looking at?
So I was a very determined person, very strong in accomplishing, relying on myself, what I said I would do. And so I remember the 2 bags I had. Still have them. We still travel together. I mean, we're still using those bags to travel
Traveling
as
with
a
the
family.
Agnews.
Those bags were purchased in '95. And I put my bags down. I landed in Arizona at midnight. And I put my bags down in the hotel. I was dropped at a hotel, didn't know where I was. And I had no apartment, no car, nothing set up. All I had is a letter of admission to the University of Arizona. But I didn't know anybody there. And like I said, didn't have any lodging, didn't have any mean of transportation, didn't have a fat bank account, didn't have any family I could rely on. And so I put my 2 bags down in my room, and I looked around and I said, what did I just do? And I said, it'll be all right. So I lay down, I get a good night's sleep, wonderful night of sleep. And the next day I said, okay, what am I gonna do now? I said, well, I have this letter, and I know it's a little cliche, but I said, I heard that most big universities have big football stadiums. So I'm sure if I go outside and look for a big football stadium with the logo, because I had the logo of the University of Arizona on the letter of admission with the logo on it, that has to be the university. So didn't have a cell phone either. Didn't have a mean to call. So I looked at the letter, I looked at the logo, it was an A. And it was a red, blue, and white A. And I said, well, let me get out. So I put my little backpack on, and I got down, and the lady at the lobby told her a little bit of what was going on. She said, you need some water. It's 125 out there. Nobody walks. It's Arizona. And I said, I'll be all right. If you give me a bottle of water, I'll be fine. Because in Belgium, you walk. So for me, that wasn't an issue. And so I got out, and it was heat. I mean, it was hot.
Dry
heat. It was dry heat. And so I looked around, and I saw a big A with a big stadium. And I said, I'm going to start walking toward that A. And I walked, and then I found an office, and I went in, and they, started asking questions, and they, just told me where to go, what to do, the different process I have to do when I get there before school starts. But I still didn't have an apartment, and I still didn't have a car. So I was very friendly, I spoke to everybody. Everywhere I went, I spoke to people. So I made friends very quickly. And one of the person, he was in the PhD program, he had a car. He was married, he had a car. So I told his wife and him, I said, do you mind if maybe you can take me somewhere and I can get a bike? He said, oh yeah, we can go to Walmart and I can get you a bike. So I went and bought a bike, a big purple mountain bike. And I started riding my bike everywhere I went in the heat with my backpack. And I said, okay, I gotta find me an apartment. So I said, well, I don't have a car yet, so I have to find something real close. And for those who are familiar, most of the time around the colleges, the areas are not so greatly developed. And so I ended up in a not so nice neighborhood in an apartment, but it was not expensive. And so I said, that'll be good. I signed the lease. It was already furnished. And so I said, that's perfect. It had one couch, one table, one bed, and it was really, I just scrubbed everything real good so it could shine. And so I got the apartment, had my bike, and I was just as content and determined that this was going to work because of what I said at 14, yet not knowing what I said at 14, what was what the Lord told me I was going to do. But I had so much confidence. And yes, that was the beginning
Of course,
of that.
what you said at 14, you didn't mention it, but your mom was here, your mother was here last year and
Yes.
brought
Yes.
what she wrote on. Did she write it down or
No,
you
I
wrote
wrote
it?
it down.
You wrote it. She
carton
kept on a who?
Carton beer.
A
The
beer
carton,
carton.
the beer
Yeah,
carton.
beer carton. It was a beer carton that you set the glass of beer on, and she actually wrote down what she said and gave it to her mother, and her mother kept it.
Yes.
And that was how many years ago? 32 years ago
Yes, 32.
when you said that at 14.
Yes.
And so it's amazing that the Lord has signs and
Yes.
things to show that he was there all the time.
Yes.
So I titled this Life and Ministry. I should have titled it The Introduction of Dr. Agnew, but Life and Ministry Together. Life and Ministry Together, because I believe it would be good for people to hear the testimony and experience of someone. I mean, there are many out there, but
Yes.
our experience and testimony of how we met and how we are able to live like we live, where we live, with who we live with,
Yes.
around those that we are with. And so life and ministry together, we're going to get there, but not today. Not today. So you're building this life in Arizona, and amongst building this life in Arizona, is there anything else that, even backtracking all the way from your training from 6 years old going up, things that you remember that you might want to include on this particular show? Any experiences or from being a child growing up until even going into living in America? Anything else you can share with us?
So living in Arizona, it gave me a little more freedom to experience people that maybe I wouldn't have talked to because of the environment I was raised in. Like I remember a sister that a young, well, she was probably in her 40s, but she invited me to a service. And I was always very outgoing, so I would go to, I just would go everywhere. And I said, sure, I'll go with you. Of course, with a very analytical mind and very critical. And I went with her, and again, same experience. Just I experienced religiosity, but not living hope, Christ in people that would make me think this is the solution to what I'm experiencing inside, that nobody really knows what I'm going through because I put up on a good facade. And so I just experienced different things like that, but it never, it was always the same, always the same thing, is what you telling me I need something, but I'm not seeing it in your life. So for me, it was not, the solution was not in there, because I was watching, I was observing, and I was trained with the scientific method. So the scientific method, you observe, you make an experiment, you guess, and you conclude. So I just follow the same process, watching people who say I needed something different. And so I would watch them, I would make, notation of what I'm experimenting and what I'm seeing, and then I would conclude the solution is not in there, it's obvious. And so it's sad, but that stuck with me in my walk with the Lord. When I had a turnaround, that really stuck with me, because I said, I know how I felt looking at saints going through struggles but not seeing anything different. And recently, it makes me think of something that's a little off of what you asked me, but I thought it would fit here. Recently, I was told what my grandfather went through coming out of the camp. I share with you, he was part of the Walk of the Dead. That's what it was called, La Marche des Morts, the Walk of the Dead, where when the war stopped, the German decided we have to evacuate as many camps to not have any kind of witnessing of what was going on in the camp, so we can be blamed for that. And so what they did is they took all the prisoners that were still living, but apparently were very weak, and they were hoping that by putting them on this long walk, they would finally collapse and not survive, and so there wouldn't be witnesses to tell, hey, this is what happened in the camps. So my grandfather was part of that, my dad's dad. And I remember my dad telling me he was so weak. My grandfather was so weak. He just felt like, I'm just gonna fall out. That's it. My body is finished. And he told the Nazi, I just want to sit down. I'm finished. Just leave me here. And the Nazi said, no, you got to keep walking. And he threw him a piece of bread and said, eat that and keep walking, hoping that he would just, get exhausted eventually and just fall out. And he ate that bread, and that gave him a boost to live and to keep walking. And I was thinking about that, and I was really meditating on that and thinking, this is suffering. This is serious suffering. When your body is so mistreated, you just can't take another step. It's over. You malnourished, you're sick, you've been through terrible tortures. I said, that is true suffering. And I said, my God, my grandfather didn't know the Lord, and he kept on walking. And here I am with Christ, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, the living God living inside of me. And I'm living in the U.S. These are just inconvenience. We're just inconvenient. We don't suffer. It's just inconvenience. And it's something that really just stick with me. I said, let me not just go through and look a certain way because I'm inconvenient, because the AC is not working. When you have people who don't know the Lord and can go through that level of suffering through life without knowing the Lord. And so that's something that I meditated on recently.
It sounds like natural bread gave him hope. And we have the bread of life. What type of hope do we have? That's amazing. Powerful. It's powerful to witness this, friends. There was more I wanted to dig a little bit on, but because of time, I think this will be enough for people to go back and listen to it again, meditate on it, and think about it. And maybe when we come back, we can talk about some more experiences and even go on to the point of when we met.
Yes.
And remember, this is life and ministry together. A lot of people are dwelling together, but they don't share life together. As a matter of fact, a lot of believers, they live together, they go to, quote, church together, but they don't have life together. And there's a difference, and that's what we're dealing with. I do want to give a shout out to who I call my dad in the gospel, our pastor, we call him Bishop Robert E. Smith. Some call him Apostle Robert E. Smith, evangelist, brother, whatever you want to call him. We just are thankful for the relationship and the connection, and his wife, Dr. Cass,
Yes.
Dr. Carolyn Ann Smith. We have so many people in our lives that we've watched that share life and ministry together. And we've learned a lot, including my father and mother,
Yes.
the elder Jesse Edgar Agnew Sr., who's no longer on this earth, but he is alive with Christ. And my mother, who's still here. Oh, man, my mother. The mother, Henrine Agnew.
Yes.
And also your mother, who just
Yes.
became a believer
Yes.
a little over 3 years ago.
Yes.
And we're so thankful for, we call her Mamunette or Munette. Her name is Suzanne. And your father, Franz. We're just thankful for relationships we get to watch and observe. And that another thing I thought of, that scientific method. How many believers actually use the scientific method through science, falsely so called, and not trust the Lord? They observe and experiment and then conclude
Yes.
instead of trusting the Lord and allowing him to do what he does.
Yes.
But one more shout out and one more commercial break. October the 25th, 26th, and the 27th. Mark your calendars, save the date. You don't want to miss this year's Overcomers Conference. Our theme this year is experiencing God's power, wisdom, and nature. Have you experienced God's power, God's wisdom, and God's nature? Oh, what is that about? Well, you're going to get to know it if you can come and be with us at the 2023 Overcomers Conference. We're excited about that and excited to invite you. Look, my name is Aaron Agnew, and this is my wife. Everyone, this is my wife, Dr. Amalia Agnew. Wow. Thank you for coming on the show with me again. I'm so excited to have you, and thank you for sharing some of your experiences and some of the things we're learning together. Again, please don't miss the Overcomers Conference. And look, rooms are already booking up here in our city. And I mean, you wanna be here. So go ahead and start getting things together now so that you don't have to wait later. This is the New Man News Network. The new man is in the house, and we're here, and the new man wants out. Listen, this is news that matters, news you can use, news from above. I'm your newscaster, Aaron Agnew, and we'll be back with some more news real soon. Oh, and tomorrow, I have to say this, on tomorrow at 10 a.m., we have a special class we're doing. And if you're interested, send me a message. I would love for you to join us tomorrow as well. Any last words before we close out?
No, sir.
Well, we love you, bless you, and we'll be back with some more news that matters. God bless you, my friends.